What's up there, Reject Nation? I'm Greg Alba.
John Humphrey.
We're gonna watch from Looper, Spider-Man 3 details revealed. Wow.
Wow.
Excited to find out what we got here. Before we go into this, I wanted to say thank you to everyone who helped us have a successful October at our Patreon page. We do weekly Q&As over there, and we also do TV show reactions, stream-along, sync up with the time code. And those shows are Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., Stranger Things Season 3, Gotham just made a Season 4, Haunting of Hill House Season 1, Cobra Kai Season 2, and then there are shows where we have the stream-along option, but we also have the option where we edit reaction highlights, so you don't have to worry about that at all, footage included. And those shows are Supernatural, just made it to Season 4, Hunter x Hunter, One Punch Man, Code Geass, Death Note, My Hero Academia, just made it to Season 4, movie as well, Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood, and Attack on Titan. He does music video coverage weekly. Let's swing into this, Spidey.
Sony and Disney found their way back to the bargaining table, and a deal has been struck. Old Webhead will get at least one more MCU set starring vehicle, one that we have a funny feeling will have the word home somewhere in its title. These are just a few things you can expect. Details about Spider-Man's third solo outing in the MCU are exceedingly slim. Surprisingly though, we already know the film's release date, as it was announced the same time that Marvel and Sony went public with the renewing of their shared custody deal. Spider-Man's next web-slinging adventure will hit the big screen on July 16th, 2021. At least that's where it's slotted at the moment. It's possible it could be pushed off to a later date for a couple of reasons. First, Marvel's 2021 slate is already pretty crowded. Previously announced to be on tap for that year are Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings on February 12th, Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness on May 7th, and Thor Love and Thunder on November 5th. If Spidey 3's release date holds up, it would mark the first time Marvel has released 4 MCU pictures in the same year, which even the most hardcore fans might see as crowding the market. And that's before we even get to that year's Disney Plus output. Also, this summer will see the release of another highly anticipated superhero film, Matt Reeves' The Batman, which hits screens on June 25th.
Who cares?
The Robert Pattinson starring flick will be the first Batman solo film in
Marvel.
nearly a decade. While Marvel has
Marvel,
reason to be confident in the web-slinger's ability to kill it at the box office, there would be no shame in rethinking putting him up against The Dark Knight.
No, that's definitely not what we want to
Have we gotten to the title of the
Details
video?
for the third MCU Spider-Man flick have not been divulged, in all likelihood because the movie is still tangled up in early development. We do know one thing, however: life is about to get even more difficult for Peter Parker. Spider-Man Far From Home ended on a heck of a cliffhanger, with Parker's identity having been revealed to the public thanks to Mysterio and J. Jonah Jameson. In the MCU, Jameson is apparently a conspiracy theorist blogger and not a newspaperman, but he still looks a heck of a lot like J.K. Simmons.
Here's a real blockbuster. Brace yourselves, you might want to sit down.
Spider-Man's name is Peter Parker.
Of course, we can speculate. Outside of the third Tom Holland movie, Sony is continuing to develop its Spidey-related properties independently of involvement from Marvel Studios. At the moment, those projects include Venom 2, Morbius, and Kraven the Hunter.
Spider-Verse was just announced too.
Screenwriter and the Equalizer series scribe, Richard Wenk. It should be noted that, since the days of the aborted Andrew Garfield starring Amazing Spider-Man franchise, Sony has been keen to get the Sinister Six, a revolving team of old Webhead's greatest nemesis, onto the screen.
First and final word.
You should get the Sinister Six before they appear as standalone villains, though, right?
You would think.
With all of the spider wheelings and dealings that have gone on in recent months, fans could be forgiven for being a bit confused as to the nature of Sony and Marvel's relationship at this point. Follow us here. Venom, which starred Tom Hardy and featured exactly no references to Spider-Man, surprised everyone by grossing over $850 million worldwide, despite lukewarm reviews. Morbius,
Venom.
a solo vehicle for the living vampire and longtime Spidey nemesis, which Sony has on tap for 2020, may very well follow suit.
Venom was Morbius.
Thus far, Spidey-less Sony universe of Marvel characters. Everyone knows that the MCU reigns supreme, so why not engineer a crossover between the two universes? In fact, this may very well be what's happening, and if so, Spider-Man 3 will likely be a focal point of the strategy. No less an authority than Marvel Studios head honcho Kevin Feige has teased that Spidey is, quote, the only hero with the superpower to cross cinematic universes, and in the past, he's suggested that Hardy's Venom and Holland's Spidey could one day meet on the big screen. It's all but certain that the two studios are busy hashing out the details even as you're watching this. But for now, we'll just have to wait and see how it all plays out. One of Spider-Man Far From Home's biggest twists came during the flick's post-credit scene, when it was revealed that the Nick Fury and Maria Hill would seen for the entirety of the film were, in fact, Skrull imposters, assigned to Parker by the real Fury, who was busy, well, in space, tending to some secret mission or another on a ship full of Skrulls. All of this while being extremely shoeless. Jokes aside, this sets off a massive wave of speculation that the flick had been tasked with doing a bit of heavy lifting in setting up an MCU adaptation of the Secret Invasion storyline, in which Skrulls infiltrate the highest ranks of power on Earth by way of, you know, imitating everyone. Remarks made by director John Watts seem to indicate, though, that the twist was actually his decision, and not a mandate from on high. This would likely mean that Fury's space jaunt isn't, in fact, setting up major future developments for the MCU as a whole. So
Okay.
could it have been teasing a continued
what was the
role
point
for
of it?
Fury and all the Skrulls in the
You
next
know.
Spider-Man movie? For now, it's completely unknown. But our money is on the super spy returning to Earth to resume its stewardship of Parker, with a few interesting stories to tell. When Sony and Marvel made up, the first question on fans' minds was the obvious one: for how long? All we know for certain is that, aside from his third solo venture, Spidey will appear in at least one more Marvel Studios film. Beyond that, the future is a question mark. Considering that the MCU and Sony's universe of Marvel characters are finally making overtures toward recognizing each other's existence, though, there are a few ways it's likely to go. The studios could, as previously mentioned, find a viable narrative for the character to switch cinematic universes, or, as Deadline has suggested, they could form a loose connection, with a kind of call and response aesthetic, which would keep the franchises largely separate, but tangentially connected. Or, if the two studios can truly see their way clear to giving the fans what they want, the two universes
Spider-Man's so
could
cool.
merge, with Sony's
Yeah, look at him.
established characters being absorbed into the MCU. It seems like a pretty slight possibility, and it might be, but it also appears to be the option likely to generate the maximum amount of box office dollars. So we're going to go ahead and call it not impossible. Check out one of
That's
our
like a
newest
Kevin
videos
Feige
right
quote.
here. Plus, even more Looper videos about your favorite comic book movies are coming soon. Subscribe to our YouTube channel and hit the bell so you don't miss a single one.
Spider-Man 3 plot details revealed. And then a little bit in the video, plot details
We don't know
are pretty
any
slim.
plot. There are no plot
But
details.
here you go. But they said some pretty interesting stuff to riff on.
Well, yeah, it's the plot of Spider-Man's contractual woes.
Honestly, they brought up a great point with the first thing. Spider-Man 3 is going to be 1 out of 4 Marvel slated films. Now, Marvel has pushed their films before and, you know, moved around the slots. Hell, freaking with Infinity War, they changed it like a month before to a week earlier. It's not as big of a deal, but they caused a lot of other studios to go, we got to move our movies a week now because freaking Infinity War is going to overshadow us. I do think that's a bit much, especially because the Disney Plus series seem integral to the whole MCU experience now and keeping up with the whole timeline. If you got a Disney Plus thing going on and then you have 4 MCU movies coming out so close to each other, that's a bit much in my opinion. It's a little too much. Like 3 is plenty. I guess you could argue 1 MCU movie per season, but still 3's already like, oh, that's a lot. You know.
Yeah, I think we're getting to the point in culture where if you want to, you could just only watch superhero entertainment because there's enough of it and there's going to be enough of it, especially in 2020, 21. You're going to have interconnected TV and interconnected movies, plus you're going to have DC and whichever other comic book studios are putting out movies. You've got like Spawn and Bloodshot on the horizon, so you've got more people entering the arena. 2021 especially, I mean, that's a whole year removed, so I wonder how we're gonna feel by that time. I mean, I'm sure we'll miss Spider-Man by that time, but I doubt we'll be superheroed out, but will we be superheroed out?
I don't think we'll be superheroed out. Highly doubt that. I just think 4 MCU films is a lot. Specifically MCU. To me, it's not really the idea of too many comic book movies in a year. It's just 4 connected movies in 1 year. That's a big deal. The thing about how John Watts said that it was his idea with the Skrulls, Nick Fury and Maria Hill, that it might not be some setup for something. And honestly, that would be really annoying to me because I just go, what was the point of it? It wasn't funny. It doesn't make the rewatch that much more impactful or like, oh shit, there were Skrull hints left and right.
It doesn't really do much for this movie.
Does it do anything to enhance the story or make the storytelling more compelling? Honestly, it doesn't. Me, I thought it was cool as an effective, like, oh, what's Nick Fury doing in space? What are the Skrulls helping out? And to me, I'm like, it's kind of, I would be annoyed if there's like no real plans for it.
Yeah, and I would be really surprised if they dropped that, just because it's such a significant context piece that it would feel very careless to me coming from the MCU to drop an anvil like that and then to just completely ignore it into the future. And with all their talk of going even further down the cosmic realm, I feel like it makes sense. I mean, to me, if that's true, if this was just a John Watts original, I almost feel like maybe it just worked with their plans already, and then they were like, oh yeah, well, okay, well, we can throw in a little extra scene too to hint what's at the future or something. Like, I would believe that more than just, it's some random thing that's never gonna come back.
Yeah, that's true.
That would just seem negligent.
I mean, what I hope too, though, is that for Spider-Man 3, that they really use J. Jonah Jameson. That would be so rewarding to me.
The most exciting thing to me is like having J.K. Simmons back.
Yeah, I mean, with J.K. Simmons, some people thought it was kind of distracting that they didn't put him in any makeup.
Yeah.
But I think to distinguish the universes and whatever, whatever semantics or technicalities you want to argue about, it just makes it easier to, even though he's doing the exact same role.
Earth 616 Jameson.
Something like that,
Not 617 Jameson.
But it does also allude to, I mean, I'm still hoping one day Sony will pull the trigger and get a crossover with Garfield, Holland, and Tobey Maguire.
I would so adore that.
I'm still hoping for that.
Specifically.
That's going to be their Spider-Man 3. You guys wait and see. And also, we're going to speculate about it forever. Will Tom Holland ever go to Sony, like the Morbius or Venom world? Or will Venom or Morbius ever go into the MCU world? I personally would much rather Tom Holland crossed over into the Sony-verse as opposed to these characters going into the MCU.
That works better.
Much rather prefer that, yeah.
Because the Sonyverse has something of its own vibe.
Yeah.
It's like the X-Men are going to have to get recontextualized, and I feel like
I think if you put anything in the MCU, you're going to have to essentially reboot it.
Yeah.
Whereas I think you can kind of make some mumbo jargon thing up and have Tom Holland show up, you know?
And I feel like that could almost work in a sense that assuages some of the complaints about like, oh, the past couple Spider-Man movies have been really heavy on other MCU stuff. So if he went over to a Sony and just did Spider-Man stuff and it's all right to good, people might actually appreciate that too. And that actually might be a way to get a little more spider bang for your spider buck,
I wonder what Into the Spider-Verse Part 2 is going to do, if it's going to work at all connecting any of these things or having Venom appear or something.
Sinister Six.
With Into the Spider-Verse 2, I want to talk about this really quick. I'm not excited about it because they have changed writers and they have changed the directors, which is shocking that they would do that. They won an Oscar. They won an Oscar, and everyone thinks it's like the Phil Lord and Chris Miller movie. And while there are touches all over that film, it was directed by 3 people that were not Phil Lord and Chris Miller, and then they got different directors to step in, and they got a different screenwriter to come in. I'm like, why would they do that?
That's a great question. Provided that they wanted to come back or whatever, yeah.
When the visual style and the pacing and everything was so integral. Now I'm like, why would you just get some different... I don't know. We'll see. That's just my little tidbit about that.
The thing that always really intrigues me about these continuing Spider-Man debates is actually the Sinister Six stuff, because that's an idea that seems like it doesn't want to die, but has already actively failed via at least one franchise.
Well, I think you got to have a few villains established in standalones and then cross them over. I feel like they keep trying to rush to get there.
Do a reverse Avengers, if anything. Do a bunch of solo movies, and then finally in the 7th one, all 6 of them team up, and that's horrible for Spider-Man.
Yeah, that would be a good call. Anyway, guys, what are your Spider-Man 3 hopes? Comment below.
How'd you like those plot details?
You guys can subscribe to Looper, subscribe to The Real Rejects, click that notification bell to get notified whenever we got a video up. And I'd like to end this with a Patron of the Day shout out to Luke Anderson. I got nothing to say to you. Nothing.
I'm disappointed, Luke.
You've been gone for almost a year.
Where are you?
You haven't talked to me? Do you even realize how much of a major contribution you've been to our Patreon page? And I like to give personal shout outs, but I have literally I have no words. I haven't heard from you in almost a year.
Look what you're doing to our fearless leader. He's crumbling, Luke. He needs your love.
frightened
leader.
Frightened
Our
leader.
frightened leader, because he's cold
Let's not put a fake image
in
out
the
there.
absence of your love and attention. This needy man needs you, Luke. Where are you?
I mean, yes, and fearless leader.
Fearless, but also fearful in this moment.
We can work with that.
We can work with that. It's an asterisk, you know. Everyone is. You gotta have a little
Thank you for
bit.
being a part of our Patreon page.
Thanks for being beautiful